Principles of graphics design. Typography. Typography is a major feature in our everyday life. We see it in book and paper materials, product packaging, digital products like apps and websites, signboards and signages, and lots more. Typography is a fundamental principle of good design. Whether you are designing for print or web, good typography brings the right balance between the visual structure and the content of your graphic design. So then, what is typography? Typography is the art of arranging letters and text in a way that makes them clear, legible, and visually appealing to the reader. In this video, we will briefly look at the following subject matters under typography. First one is types of fonts and their suitable applications. Second one is criteria for choosing a font for your design. Third one is combining fonts rightly. And finally, a short video record that explains best practices to bring about good typography in your design. Let's kick off with the first one, types of fonts. First and foremost, a font is a set of printable or displayable texts in a specific size and style. There are four major fonts from which many other types of fonts originated from. They include serif fonts, sans serif fonts, script fonts, and display fonts. Now the first one, serif fonts. These fonts have little strokes called serifs attached to the main part of the letter. Their traditional and classic look make them widely used in print materials like magazines, newspapers, and so on. There are thousands of them, but commonly used ones include Times New Roman, Georgia, Palatino, and Garamond. Number 2, sans serif. Also known as without serif, these fonts don't have little strokes attached to them. I mean their main parts of the letter. Their clarity and legibility make them popularly used for text in computer screens. They are numerous in number, but popular ones include Arial, Helvetica, Tahoma, etc. Number 3, script fonts. These are fonts whose aim is to resemble handwriting. They tend to have very elegant and curly look. You'll find them in logos of sophisticated restaurants and beauty brands, elegant liquor bottles, and so on. Here are some popular script fonts that are used. Number 4, display fonts. They are also known as decorative fonts and are the most diverse group of fonts. Because of their variation in appearance, Some are highly decorative, others are minimalist, even some are comical, and so on. They are majorly used as headings and not for body of text. Here are some examples of display fonts. Now moving to the second subject matter, criteria for choosing fonts. The appearance of fonts can be formal, casual, feminine, masculine, neutral, comical, and so on. Simply put, choose a font that best fits the message and purpose of your design. And the third one, combining fonts rightly. Combining fonts are very possible so long as the variations are less and there is more uniformism. Of course, you can use different fonts for your design, but just make sure they are complementary. For example, using a sans serif heading with a serif body of text. Now the fourth one, which is best practices in design to bring about good typography. We'll now be going to the short recording that explains this.
Hello, wonderful viewer. Welcome to this short recording that will explain to you the best practices that bring about good typography in your design. And right now, we want to use this sample agency design work to demonstrate how typography was applied in a proper way to bring about a neat and simplistic design. By the way, I'm using Photoshop as the graphics design software to show this. Now, the best practices that bring about good typography can majorly be categorized into two groups. There are two major things you do that make you produce good typography. The first one is contrast, and the second one is white spacing. Now, starting with the first one, contrast. Contrast in your typography simply means a visible difference between the kinds of fonts that you use for your typography. Alright, visible difference. Now, what this simply means is, for example, we want to look at this portion now. You can see this portion of the design. We want to use it as a reference point to explain contrast. So with this portion of the design, okay, I will zoom in now, okay, so that we see it clearly. Now, in explaining contrast, you can see that the heading of the body of this text, is visibly different from the body of the text. Why? Because of contrast. And contrast can be applied in several ways. One of the ways you can apply contrast, okay, is color contrast. Just like as in the one used here, you can see that the color of the heading is visibly different from the color of the body of text. okay, and it creates a very high contrast, okay, which is very good, okay, in typography. Another contrast that can be applied is the heading of the text being bigger than the body of the text, okay. That's another way to apply contrast. When you make the heading of the text, for example, being bigger than the body of the text, to show contrast between them. For example, in a way, it may not be bigger here, but the fact that the title is in capital letter, okay, makes it look sort of bigger than the body of the text. So a sort of contrast apart from color was also applied here. All right, so this is one practice that brings about good typography, when you apply contrast to your typography. Now let's quickly move to the next one, which is white spacing. Now, we had treated this topic, white spacing, earlier in a principle of design under layout and composition, and we said that white spacing is simply the spacing or the empty spaces, okay, or negative spacing. That's another name. The spacing between the margins of your design, okay, the margins of your design, and between the contents of your design, okay, and between the contents of your text. Now we are looking at white spacing in the light of typography. Now, how white spacing applies to typography alone. Okay, so right now we are looking at the spacing between the lines, okay, of the text, and between the letters of the text, and also around the text. So applying proper white spacing is very important, and we can look at this more detailed. Now, if you want to apply space between the lines of your text, like between each line of your text, the space here, you can see where my mouse is pointing out, okay, you do that, okay. It's the spacing of line between the text is known as leading. It's known as leading, all right. And applying the proper leading to your typography is very important, okay. For example, for body of text, make sure your leading is not so much. Now, for example, if I increase the leading now, watch what is going to happen. I'm increasing it, and you see now. Do you see what just happened? I increase the spacing between the lines, the spacing between the lines of the text, and you can see that it's looking a bit too spacious now. Do you see? It's currently 58 points, okay. But if I give it a relatively narrow spacing, like 30 points, you can see that it looks mature and a bit compact and nice, okay, depending on what you want to use your typography for, okay. Sometimes making it compact is very cool, sometimes making it a bit more spacious is very cool, okay. Just make sure that it looks appropriate for what you are using it for. So that is for leading, okay. The next one I want to explain in white space for typography is the spacing between the letters. For example, the space between this W and E, the spacing, it is known as kerning or tracking, all right. That's another name for it, kerning or tracking. And for example, if I increase the tracking of this text, body of text, if I increase it now to like 270, watch what happens. You can see that the space between the W and E is now wider. Do you see that? You see what is happening? So this is also very important. Make sure you put the appropriate kerning or tracking in your in your text. Like for body of text, it's important that your kerning is also narrow, okay? But maybe for the heading of text, you could make your kerning a bit more, okay? Sometimes at times it works very okay. Maybe for like one line text is good, sometimes it's okay to apply a bigger kerning to them. But for body of text, please make sure your kerning is narrow. And the final thing I want to talk about is alignment, okay? The alignment of the text. For example, the alignment of this text, okay, the paragraph alignment is justified, okay? It can be left aligned, center aligned, right aligned, justified. All right, now you will see, depending on what you are using your typography for, aligning it left, center, right, or justifying it may be more appropriate. For example, imagine if I left align this text now. I don't know if you notice, but do you see that this place is kind of uneven, and it kind of gives it a sort of imbalance somehow, okay? You can see here is very straight, but here is kind of bent, breaking. Now in some cases this is very appropriate, it's all right, okay? But in some other cases it may not be so appropriate. Like now, if I center it too, you can see that the edges are imbalanced. The edges, okay? In some cases this is appropriate, in some other cases is not, okay? Like now this is left aligned, but I felt in order to make it look balanced in a way, the best option was to justify it, like to make it look in a balanced form. All right, you understand? So depending on what you are what you need it for, okay, that's when you can apply alignment. All right, so make sure you choose the appropriate alignment for your text. So that's for that. Thank you very much. These are some of the best practices that are applied to bring about good and neat text, okay? I can see that most of these things I explained here were applied in the other elements of the graphic work, okay? And just before I leave you, okay, another way to apply contrast, okay, is if you make, for example, the heading of the text, the font style, different from the body of the text. In this case it's the same, it's both Calibri, I believe, but contrast can occur when you make the heading different in font style from the body of the text. Make sure they are complementary even if they are different. All right, for example, you can see that the heading of this text is different, but it kind of complements the others. All right, so thank you so much for watching. Let's go back to the recording.
Yay! There you have it. We have come to the end of this journey of being introduced to graphics design. Okay, it has been an amazing journey, and I know as a viewer you are now very much equipped to create effective and outstanding graphic design works. Go out there, have fun, and just make the world more colorful and creative by designing wonderful graphic works with these principles you have learned in this series. In case you are looking for a wonderful place to start creating professional graphic design works, I have created in Udemy website a video course called All-in-One Beginner to Professional Photoshop Tutorials. Okay, in it you will get to practice creating real life hands-on projects, okay, using the most popular graphic design software called Photoshop. I'm going to leave the description, the link to that video course in the comment section. So do well to visit the link and enroll and facilitate your journey of moving from beginner to professional. Thank you.